thing I want to speak about tonight is it's very broad. The word broad is not even the right word. It's a very huge subject, which past few weeks I've been discussing different elements of the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs in the future, which seemingly we are told will be changed. For example, the halacha will be like Beis Shammai instead of Beis Hillel, that the son of the Yom Tovim will be bottled when Moshiach will come, will be nullified. What exactly does that mean? How does it work with the eternity of Torah? How could anything in the Torah change? On a similar concept, although it's a different point altogether, is a interesting concept, which is, are we able to fulfill mitzvahs with objects that are created in a miraculous way? For example, when Moshiach will come, the trees will grow miraculously, right? You'll have, in the same day you plant a tree, the fruit will be ready to eat. So the question is, can you fulfill a mitzvah through objects that are miraculous? Now this is a huge subject that's discussed, and it's not a question which only rises regarding Moshiach will come. It's a question throughout. There's a number of Mamarei Chazal, number of stories in the Gemara, number of stories in the Nevi'im, number of Midrashim about the Yidden that all focus on that a lot of Achronim discuss various different points, Sayal Pinigla, Sayal Pikabol, Chassidus, whatever you might want to call it, about fulfilling mitzvahs with supernatural things. For example, Lag Boimer, we celebrate, there's a minig tit boxer on Lag Boimer, Caribs. Why is there minig tit Caribs? The mother says that Shimon Yochai went to the cave. Yeah, no one was supposed to know where he was, so no one brought him food and drinks. So how did he survive? So the Eibush made that a carob tree grew overnight, it produced carobs, and there was a spring of water, and he had what to eat and drink for the next 13 years. Yeah. The halacha is that a fruit that grows, first 3 years you can't eat it. It's Erla. So how is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai allowed to eat? The Eibush obviously made the miracle that should grow overnight, should grow right away, so you should have what to eat. But for the first 3 years you can't use the fruit of the tree. How did he have what to eat? So the answer that's given is very simple. Since it's a miraculous creation, therefore he was allowed to eat from it, because the whole prohibition, the Shail is gedruckt, the Rebbe redt wegen dem, and the Sich is a Sich, Portmal, the Rebbe redt wegen dem. So in other words, how is he able to eat from it? So the answer that Achronim give, that's brought on in Svarim, since it was created in a miraculous way, so the prohibition of eating the first 3 years doesn't apply to a tree that was created through a miracle. It only applies to a tree that's planted in a miraculous way.
Someone, open up a can of worms. I'll be in a place, it's a miracle.
Good. Weiter. There's a lot to discuss over here. You have a similar discussion you have in the midbar, according to some Midrashim, the Be'er Shel Miriam, the water, the midbar, that the desert that Eden were in, the pasuk says was not a place that you were able to plant anything. But it says miraculously, the well of Miriam, they were able to plant in the well through the waters of Miriam, and they had things growing immediately. So there also the Rebbe spoke once that there was no chiv truma meiser. There's two things. One thing is with the first 3 years you could eat it. Another thing is if you have to separate, the halachas fruits that grow in Eretz Yisrael, you have to separate. So there's no chiv truma meiser from such a type of thing. I mean, they were anyway in the desert before, but I don't want to get into all the nitty gritty here. But there was, something that grows in a miraculous way. There's not necessarily the obligation to give truma meiser. You have, so on and so forth. Many examples. Now you have in the various midrashim. What I want to say about the midbar is like this. There's a discussion if they were allowed to use for wine, for karbonos, every carbon you bring wine, so we're allowed to use wine made from the grapes that grew miraculously in the desert or not. Similar question. So there's a lot of discussion over there. There's from some places it seems pretty clear, like I told you the story with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that things that grow in a miraculous way are not subject to the restrictions of the prohibitions of Torah. You have, to give a similar example, there's a story, there's a discussion in the Gemara, I think, if something is created in a supernatural way, let's say an animal is created, and you have, it's an interesting thing, Yosef and his brothers, right? Yosef claimed that his brothers were eating Eber min achai, they're eating limb from a living animal. Oh, how was he suspecting them of doing so? How did they taka do it? If he was suspecting them that they ate Eva Machai want to arrange the Magnum Vilm Tzmunas from the Shir. So the question is, how was Yosef able to the brothers obviously were eating Avram and Achai. Yosef wasn't suspecting them because of some type of suspicion. Yeah, what was going on over here? So there's a number of explanations given, interesting purport. One explanation is the brothers created an animal through Sefer Yetzirah, through using Shemus HaKadoshim, holy names. In such an animal, there's no prohibition to eat Avram and Achai. The laws of the Torah only relate to things that are governed by the laws of nature. But things that are not governed by the laws of nature, there's no prohibition of Avram and Achai. If, let's say from heaven they would create an animal that's not kosher, so to say, but since it's not created in a normal form, not necessarily would there be an issue to eat it. And so on. That's a ben pikua. There's many different explanations for food.
Whatever you find is logically is permitted.
Yeah.
Something.
Take from everyone. Take from. They want to hear this. They're looking for. They're not looking for people to. So at any rate, so this discussion is very huge. Now, regarding when Moshiach will come, I want to give a very important understanding, which is negayah to the whole continuation of the question, which is like this. The question only relates to fulfilling Torah mitzvahs with things that are created in a miraculous way. When Moshiach will come, it's not necessarily pshat that then things will be created in a miraculous way, but rather the nature of things will change. In other words, let's say if today the nature of a tree is that it takes a year to grow. When Moshiach will come, the nature it'll grow in one day. Is that considered miraculous? It's not considered miraculous. If the nature is that everything grows in 3 years and all of a sudden one tree out of the blue grows overnight, that's a miracle. But if the nature changes, it's not considered a nace in the first place. So you have, there's a whole discussion, which there's a lot to understand and to discuss, but the Rebbe speaks about in the Sikha that the Rebbe has discussing the different periods of Mashiach coming. The Rebbe says that in the second period, the nature itself will undergo a change. Since the nature itself will undergo a change, so therefore, based on that logic, comes out that you're not fulfilling Torah mitzvahs with miraculous things. In other words, I'll add a little bit more explanation. A lot of things that will change in the future are because when the world was originally created, it was meant to be a certain way. For example, Torah says when the Eibusher created the world was meant that the tree should be planted, should grow the day that they're planted. That's the way the world was meant to be. So is it considered a miracle? So now if a tree would grow overnight, it's considered a miracle. But when the nature reverts back to the way it was originally, it won't be considered a miracle that this tree grew in a miraculous way. This was what was the nature of the tree lechatchila. The nature of the world originally was that bread should grow from the ground. You shouldn't have to have wheat and grind the wheat and turn it into flour and then knead it and bake it and so on and so forth. But you go outside, you pick up ready fresh bread growing from the ground. So if today such a loaf of bread would grow, it's a davar nisi, it's a miraculous thing. So who says you could be Yitzhak HaMishnah with it? Who says you could v'chulu. But what happens in the future? But the world originally, when it was created, that's the way it was meant to be. Before Chet Eitzadas, the nature of the world was meant that the bread should grow out in the ground the way it is, ready-made. So when the world reverts back to its initial nature, it's not considered a miracle, it's considered this is a nature. So in essence, if you fast forward the way the world will be, tachlis tikkun at its eventual shleimus in the times of Moshiach, so many of the things that we call today miraculous are not going to be considered miraculous at that time, will be considered nature. But the question arises, the Rebbe gives a fundamental point, that in the first period of when Moshiach comes, the world itself, the nature of the world won't be changed. There will be certain miracles that will take place. But first of all, it will only happen in Eretz Yisrael. And in Eretz Yisrael itself, it won't be considered the nature of the world. It will be considered, let's say, exactly how do you understand the difference, whether you say the nature changed or not changed, I'm not exactly sure. I don't want to get stuck on that. But good, but in other words, in the second period is when the world will reach its complete tikkun. Then the world will revert to its own inherent nature, where all these things that we call miracles, that's really the nature of the world. But in the first period, there will still be, in the world at large, the world will still be Ra in the world, at least by the Goyim, let's say, outside of Eretz Yisrael. There will still be the possibility for a Goy to do an Aveda. There will still be, not in the whole world, you're not going to have that trees will grow overnight. It's going to be in Eretz Yisrael will happen. It won't necessarily happen throughout the world. It won't be that the nature of the world as is will change. It will be a miracle that will take place, especially for the Yid in Eretz Yisrael. So in other words, even in times of Moshiach, if we break it down, there's really two stages. There's the later stage, and then all these things that we call miracles will actually be the nature of the world itself. But then there's the earlier stage, when the world itself, the nature of the world won't be perfectly refined. So a lot of these things that we're speaking about are going to remain as a supernatural occurrence. It's not going to be considered the actual nature of the world. So then the question is, could you fulfill Torah mitzvahs with these? First of all, there's 2 points of it. The first point is, do these things is there a mitzvah? Could you fulfill Torah mitzvahs with them? And then there's a deeper question. The deeper question is that we know that the ultimate fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs will be when the Moshiach will come. And after then, we see all these miracles happening. So,
but you're not going to have other things. That's the only thing you're going to have. Can you fulfill with that? If you cannot fulfill with that,
yeah. So let's say if the world. Let's say there's a mitzvah to give Trumas and Maasros. Yeah, from okay, the mitzvah Trumas and Maasros applies to a number of things, but you have everything grows that same day. So everything that grows is considered miraculous. There's no mitzvah giving Truma or Maaser. So
the same as now that you're not part of the mitzvahs also.
So it becomes whatever. It's not. Anyway, so
give an example of oil. You won't be able to have natural oil.
That's the shayla.
It's not because you won't be able to you won't be able to light the menorah.
Yeah. If you say that you can't fulfill mitzvahs with miraculous things, and this is the way everything is going to grow, so the point is there's a number of points over here. One point is like this. One answer, an interesting answer that's given, it's not dafka say everyone agrees with. It's interesting. There's a certain sefer, Rabbi Galiski in the sefer, we don't discuss this a lot. The sefer Kav Chaim, one of the Achredim says interesting words. He says that when the whole type of life that you have is supernatural, let's say you didn't in the Mitzvah, right? Everything was supernatural. You had the clouds, you had the moon, you had the water from the well of Miriam. Everything that was going on was miraculous. So in the case of things that are supernatural, so if so, there's no problem fulfilling mitzvahs with supernatural things, because your whole life, everything that you have, l'chatchila, it's a hanhoga, that's l'mayla min hatav, l'chatchila, the whole way the world is running, at least for the Jewish people, is in a supernatural way. So if you're going to fulfill a mitzvah with something supernatural, I would rephrase it in another way, even though I don't want to get stuck in how you. And when everything is miraculous, the miracles are nature. You understand? The nature is nishta. The nature is nishta. Huh? The what?
Everybody is a thing that keeps happening.
That's Baal Shem Tov says that. Baal Shem Tov says that. Yeah. So in other words, when everything is miracle, so in a certain sense, your nature l'chatchila is miraculous. So what's the pell if you be mekayim Torah mitzvahs with that? That's one thing. But the Rebbe what the Rebbe says, the Rebbe explains like this. The Sikh, when the Rebbe discusses the Shteit Kuf, it's a few places. The Rebbe learns pshat like this. The Rebbe says that here's a lot where Chassidus comes in. Again, I'm just scratching the surface. A lot to discuss over here. Why do you have to fulfill mitzvahs dafka with physical things? So the Rebbe discussed a number of times the famous story of the Alter Rebbe with Kiddush Levana. Alter Rebbe, when he was in prison, so he was imprisoned after Sukkot, and he was remained in prison 53 days. So whether it was Chesed or Kislev, whichever month it was, Alter Rebbe wanted to be Mekadosh Levana. So when the Alter Rebbe had the opportunity, he was being taken to, the Alter Rebbe was kept on an island. That's where they had this fortress for these prisoners. The Alter Rebbe was being taken for interrogation, so they had to take him from one place to the other place over water. So he was in a boat, so the Levana was out, he wanted to Kaddish Levana, so he asked, everyone knows the story, he asked the captain, the one that was rowing the boat to stop, he didn't want to stop. So the Alter Rebbe stopped the boat in his own way, and then the Alter Rebbe said the Kapitel Halaluka, the preparation of Kiddush Levana, then he asked again the captain to stop. This time he already understood that it doesn't make sense for him not to stop. But he asked Alter Rebbe, what would Alter Rebbe give him first? Alter Rebbe gave him Xaviat Kotre, his handwriting, he gave him a bracha. So he stopped the boat and he said the bracha, whatever. So the Rebbe asks the question, Alter Rebbe was able to stop the boat and he's already stopped and he said, Hallelujah, why couldn't Alter Rebbe just finish Kiddush Levana? Not only that, it's a very, for the Alter Rebbe to have his Xaviat Kodesh roaming around in the guy's house, if you think about it, that is, frame, whatever. The Shidduch Rebbe uses the lotion that it's one of the ploys of the Eibishter's Tamim Dain, one of the oneness of Hashgacha Al Yoina, the Eibishter's providence. Alter Rebbe's Xaviat Kodesh is in the house of a goy. So Alter Rebbe, so to say, had to sacrifice something in order to fulfill the mitzvah by having the captain repeat. The Alter Rebbe already stopped the boat, why didn't he finish it? So the Rebbe explains that the ultimate purpose of mitzvahs is that they should be fulfilled in the tev of this world. The point of Torah mitzvahs is not to change the world from the outside, but it's to change the world from the inside, so it has to be fulfilled through teva. So when the captain wasn't allowing him to do Kiddush Levana, the Rebbe stopped the boat to show the captain that he's able to. So to get the captain, the B'derech HaTeva, so to say, he should agree to stop the boat, so he should be able to actually fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush Levana. So the Rebbe speaks a lot about, in the first period of Moshiach, which is, so to say, the natural period, to say it's according to the Rambam at least, it's going to be a time of a natural period. The Rebbe spoke a number of times that the mile of that period is that then there'll be the fulfillment of mitzvahs, the derech hateva. The Rebbe once asked in the Sikha, and the Sikha is part of the Mugad, the Sikha and Chelach HaZayin Sheit Kufas, this part of the Sikha, isn't it? The Rebbe asked, why, if the second period of Moshiach is so great, why isn't it going to happen right away? So the Rebbe said, because in the first period there's a very great advantage, that then fulfilling Torah mitzvahs, the derech hateva. So the Rebbe explains, the Rebbe says that the Ikar, in other words, there's a number of elements here that I don't have time to get into it. Apich Chassidus, the word of Torah mitzvahs is not was given Torah loy b'shamayim, the Torah doesn't apply to heaven, Torah is given this physical earth. The point is to fulfill Torah in its natural way. However, we have to now understand the second period of Mashiach now. So, what's happening over there? So there, the Rebbe, there's a lot to understand, a lot to speak about. The Rebbe says, the Rebbe gave a hadron on the Rambam in Tav Shinach. The Rebbe explains there that in the shleimus of the world there's two stages. One shleimus of the world, the avodah v'yid of doing Torah mitzvahs, is that to bring the world to a certain level of completion, that it should be one with godliness. In that itself, there's two stages. The first stage is that the world should be one with godliness that's limited to the level of creation. In other words, that there's a certain, the olam by itself has a certain gather that it has its own criteria how it exists, and the idea is to connect the world, the way the world remains in its own mitzias, in its own realm of existence with godliness. Then the Rebbe says there's a higher level, which is where the world, so to say, leaves its existence and unites itself with the Eibishter, which is higher than the Gedorim of the world, higher than the, however exactly you put it, the definitions of the world, so to say, lose themselves by becoming one with the Eibishter. The Rebbe spoke, having the Rambam, the world, K'mayim l'yom v'chasim. The Rebbe spoke a number of times, the world will be covered, the knowledge of Hashem as water covers the sea. That the sea, all the creations in the sea, so to say, lose their identity. I mean, they exist, but they lose their identity. They become submerged in the identity of the water. So the Rebbe says, in a certain sense, Apich Chassidus, there's two levels of avodah. One level of avodah which is relevant Bizman Hazen, and that level of avodah will reach its peak, its perfection. The first period of Moshiach is to bring the Elokus that's Shaykh to the world within the world itself. And now, for that thing to be accomplished, that's done dafka through fulfilling Torah mitzvahs within the laws of nature. And that's the ultimate purpose of Torah mitzvahs, is that they should be fulfilled within the laws of nature, so that the nature itself becomes one, the level of godliness that it's shaykh to obtain. The ultimate level, however, of the second period of Mashiach is what the Rebbe said, that the world is nis'ala to a level of shleimus that's higher than the tava of the world by itself. So over here, in other words like this, once the world reaches its complete shleimus, once the world becomes completely one with godliness that it's able to contain within its own level of existence, there's a high, now it doesn't stop there, there's another level you go to. Once you reach the perfection of that level, then you go to the high level. The high level is, it's not shaykh to the gedarim of the world itself, it's not shaykh to the definition of the world itself, but the world gets elevated to a higher level. According to that way that Rebbe explains, comes out that the whole, in other words, the way how you fulfill Torah mitzvahs in the second period is in a different, the first period, the Torah mitzvahs, it's still Moshiach to the world. Torah mitzvahs that we do is still relates to the world and to the laws of nature. The second period, the Torah mitzvahs, is more to bring a revelation of godliness that's completely higher than the level of creation. Torah mitzvahs that we're doing then, the focus is not on the world. The focus is on the etzem of Elokus. It's higher than Bria. Zoi bazoi, l'chayra. Again, the Rebbe doesn't tie just as clear, but that's the way it's mashma. If so, there's no problem if the Kima Torah mitzvahs doesn't fit with the laws of nature at that point. So now, within the laws of so here, the questions are finigla. How you able to do Torah mitzvahs then? So there's a number of answers for that. One simple answer is like this. One answer is that first of all, one simple answer is like what I mentioned before, that the nature itself will change. So it's not considered miraculous. There's another point that there are some times that Rebbe Moshiach has. The Rebbe says that by the the Rebbe brings a medrash that when the Yevonim said that the women can't keep taras mishpacha, so they destroyed the mikvois. So what happened was that it says, this is an interesting medrash, the Eibusher made a miracle that were mikvois that appeared in the houses of the Yidden, where they were able to be table. The women were able to be table. So Rebbe says, how could you fulfill a mitzvah with something miraculous? So, but it's again, there's a number of places where it's mashma like this. Some places mashma. There's a lot of discussion about the differences. I'm discussing the conceptual idea, the reason why al pi chassidus Torah mitzvahs you should at least try to fulfill. I'm not discussing. One thing is whether according to halacha you could fulfill mitzvahs or not with miraculous things. That's already there's many different ways to look at it. Another thing is, what is taka the reason al pi chassidus why the Eibusher set up the gedarim of Torah mitzvahs in a way that you have to do it al pi teva, because that's the gedder of Torah mitzvahs. The way Torah mitzvahs right now is to bring a shleimus in the world. The whole Torah mitzvahs is so to say modadul mugbal according to the gedarim of teva, is limited to the definitions of nature. No, that's the whole word. The word is once the world reaches that tachlis, once the world itself in its own definition of time and space and limitations of nature, or every single element of nature becomes one with the Eibusher, now the world is ready for the next step where it goes above itself. As long as the world, nature of the world itself is not completely one with godliness, so then the whole avodah is to take that the world should become the way the world is a tachton and the gedarim of a tachton to make it one with Elokus. But once that avodah is complete, why does the world have to remain a tachton now? Let the world go to even a higher level. Let it become one with godliness that's higher than creation.
The medaber is also a higher level, and the refining is also a higher level. Everything goes 1 step up.
There's no need for the tachton. There's no tachton.
So there is an alien. There is no tachton.
You said
There's no, and I'll put it in very simple like this. The whole reason why it's limited to teva is because you have to elevate teva. Once teva is elevated, so why do you have to have Torah mitzvahs limited to teva?
Yeah, this is the higher level.
There's the Yachid Yichudim, fine. Yichudim, I guess, to say. Anyway,